This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we have found to work best when dealing with teens and tough issues. This is Abbi and Cheree, Let's Talk Teens, episode 59, 6 Ways to Be More Likeable.
All right. I don't know if any of you parents have ever read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, but I highly recommend it. And I recommend it for your teens too. Abby and I were talking about how we both love this book so much.
Oh, it's my favorite. I think it was the first personal development book I ever read and, set me on a journey. But I mean, it's the classic, it's the OG.
It is. And now they actually have a version, How to Win Friends and Influence People for Teen Girls. Have you seen that one, Abby?
I've actually read it. I own a copy. I love it.
I love it. I love it too. In fact, when clients sign up for one of my programs, I send in that book. And if I want them to do one for boys too, but they haven't yet. So I send the boys the original copy and the girls the teenage one. Or if they're young adults, they get the original one. But it's just a book everyone needs to read, right?
Mhm.
Really good. But there's some parts in that that really help us be more likable. And I wanted us to talk about that today and how you as parents can help your teens learn these six ways to be more likable so that they can succeed in a lot of areas in their life, whether it's socially with their friends, whether it's their teachers, or in the future, or even currently with bosses and in the workplace, in a religious setting. This applies everywhere, right? Relationships are everywhere, and how great it is to be more likable. Okay, let's start with the first one. To be more likable, the number one thing to do is genuinely be interested in other people and really learn about their interests and what they like. Ask them questions about them. We all, as humans, we really like to talk about ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's hard to stop and listen and ask about other people because we just want to share about us. But if we can take a little pause and ask about other people and genuinely be interested in them, it makes us pretty darn likable.
As I've gotten older, this has gotten easier for me just because people are fascinating, right? And like my love of humanity just grows. But as a teenager, I think it's sometimes uncomfortable, right, to learn questions and keep that conversation going as they ask about, oh, tell me more about this, right? But it's a really great skill to help our youth know, okay, if I don't know what to say, I'm going to ask this person about them and what they like and what they do, or maybe ask a question about something they shared.
And I love that. And I love how you phrase that. Tell me more about. I think that's a great way to have our teens start that question of being interested. Tell me more about this, or tell me about dot, dot, dot. Great way to start that question that feels comfortable. Okay, the second one I think is easy and yet so profoundly powerful, and that is just a smile. It makes the day brighter for ourselves and for other people. When someone smiles at us, there's just something that changes in our demeanor and in our safety brain that it feels safe because someone's smiling at me or, at you. And then we feel more comfortable and it's easier to open up to that person when they're smiling at us.
And the hard part with your teen on this one is not that they don't know how to smile. They have a beautiful smile. Is that they've got earbuds in their ears, they've got their phone out, and their head is down. And let's add another, they've got their hoodie up, right? Everything about that says, I'm not looking up and I'm not approachable, right? So that'd be a good place to start with your teen and say, hey, when you're out and about waiting at the bus, stop, smile, nod, acknowledge people. Like that's one way they can use that.
And let's just talk about that for a second, Abby. Why do you think? What are your thoughts on that? Why are the, AirPods in and the hood up and, looking down at the phone? What brings that on for our teens? Why do you think they do that?
Oh, it is all about that self-consciousness. And I feel it like when I'm at the
Agreed.
doctor's office, I pull out my phone, right? I'm down looking because then I don't have to engage with people, right? That takes some energy. I don't have to look awkward, right? I think we're also worried we have this spotlight on us, but just teaching our youth, hey, let's just break out of this bubble because it's socially acceptable now to be all in like face down on your phone. But yeah, it's just that spotlight effect if we think everybody's looking at us and they're not, right? We're just chilling.
Oh, exactly. I think it's just that, just knowing it, it really is that insecurity where we are taught to hide and it's our first instinct to hide. And like you said, it's become very socially accepted to hide. And so we do that. And so we have to break out of that and remember that as humans, we need connection. We need smiles. It's so good. Okay, the third thing is to remember names. And I love this because we learned that a person's name is the sweetest, most important sound they will ever hear. And, I tend to be one that sometimes I'm so afraid I'm going to mess someone's name up or I'm going to
Hmm.
say it
Mhm.
incorrectly or remember it wrong that sometimes I shy away from that. But there really is power in when you talk to someone saying their name. Have a great story about this. My one of my boys was able to serve a church mission in Tennessee for a few years, and one of his goals in the area he served was to get to know every member of that congregation and learn their names. And then he stood
Wow.
at the front door, and as they came in, he would welcome and he would call them by name. But the impact that that had on that area was profound, and it was actually if I remember right, that was during COVID too. I mean, COVID had just was
And
kind of
cleared, kind of.
clearing a little bit,
Yeah.
but people were really needing that connection. And then to hear their names was really powerful.
Well, and I always, when like working with youth and we're working on our social skills, I let them know, hey, a nickname can either be an incredibly powerful bonding tool or a wedge. And I think it happens very innocently of like, if I have a nickname that's positive, that's awesome. And that can really bond me to somebody of not only using their name, but also this nickname that has our friendship. But sometimes we unintentionally give somebody a nickname that's actually demeaning, such as like, I was on a softball team and there was another girl with red hair and they called her Big Red. And guess what? No girl wants to be called Big Red,
Oh,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Even though, it's just because she was really tall, but no girl wants to be called that, right? So we got to have a little bit of that social awareness to maybe help out our teen and say, ooh, do they like that nickname? And even though they're going to be, yeah, no, they think it's totally funny. If it's not positive, if my nickname is not super beautiful girl or fast, they call you fast something, that's because of a positive quality I have, then don't use it.
Oh, I think that's such a good point to think about that with nicknames because that's part of the whole remember names, and what kind of names I mean, obviously their first name, but when it comes to nicknames, they can be really helpful or they could be really hurtful.
Mm.
Okay, the fourth one is be a good listener. And that's encouraging people to talk about themselves. And that means sometimes we have to learn to be quiet, even though, have you ever had this experience, Abby, where someone's telling you something and you have such a relatable story? I'm so guilty of
Mhm.
this. And they're telling me something and I just can't wait to tell my part of it or my similar experience. And I've noticed that's my tendency when I'm better at being intentional and working on this one. I realize that sometimes I don't need to tell my part, even if it is similar, or I don't, that it's sometimes it's just good to listen and let someone else share theirs without having to. I hope I don't one up people, but really have to
Yeah.
share my part, right? So I think that's just like how can we be better listeners and talk less and listen more?
I think, at least for me personally, I do that same thing. And I think it's because deep down, I'm afraid I'll forget or I'm afraid I won't have something to say. But the reality is, when I more intentionally listen and then even give that pause, I I remember like what's important, or maybe I'm like, you know what, I don't need to share that. I'm just gonna ask more questions.
I love that. So good. Okay, and then number five, talk in terms of other people's interests. So again, when we're having a conversation with people, it's kind of like what we talked about. The first one is being generally interested, but when we talk to someone, if we're telling them a story and we can tell we are losing them, they don't have any interest in that. How can we talk so that they are interested? How can we share something that they are interested in and speak in that term of, okay, here, you know, I'll use this example. So, I might be telling my brother something about I don't know, life coaching. I'll just say that. And he may not have any interest in that, but I know he has so much interest in hunting, right? So
Mhm.
that's where maybe I could, even if I am kind of wanting to talk about life coaching, I could use it. I could talk in terms of hunting. I could talk about how hunting's like that, or apply it that way, or use his interests to have that connection in the conversation.
Yes. And when I'm working with youth on social skills, I teach that there's layers of conversations, right? And the first is reflective of you say hi, I say hi, or how are you? Good, or how are you? Right? Like just very reflective ping-ponging back and forth. And then that second layer is I'm asking questions. Oh, hey, Cheree, how was the basketball game you went to? Or how is this, right? Because we know their interests. And to actually have a friend, we got to know their interests.
Yeah, so helpful to just think about it that way. Okay, last one, number 6 is make people feel important and do it sincerely. And I really like that one because I have noticed that when we as humans feel good about ourselves, it changes the way we act, it changes the way we show up. We're willing to give more and see where we're needed and become a part of whatever we're a part of, right? So with teens, like if they feel important and we sincerely give them compliments on what they're doing great at or where they're needed, they're more likely to own their talents and gifts and to share them. I guess I'll just share an experience with just this cute young woman that I know and really so needed in an assignment she's been given. And yet she doesn't see that, right? But when we can tell her why she's really good at, why she's important in this, that she has this quiet steadiness, or that she has this ability to be kind and connect with other peers, and we start to tell her why, what she's good at, and that she has this important role, she is stepping into that more because we sincerely have told her like, okay, this is what you're really good at and this is why you're needed. And I think our teens need to hear that way more than they do. As
Hmm.
parents, we're so quick to be like, okay, this is where you're falling short or this is where you need to improve. But I think sometimes it's more effective with us with our teens and teens with their peers or anyone they're talking to share like this is why you're important and needed and this is what you're doing that is so helpful to us, or how you give back in the community or how you help others or what part you play. I just think that's very important.
Yes, and I was thinking about how it can be really hard for a teen to be happy for a peer when that peer is successful, whether that's that peer got the lead in the musical or they're really a shining star in their academics or on the athletic field, right? And so that's a really good, I don't know, maturity marker if you can help your youth realize, hey, I can be so happy for somebody else's wins and let them know with those praise and that compliment. And it doesn't have to take away from me. Like it doesn't mean that I'm less. And that can be something that teens feel very intimidated by. But if we're modeling it at home, then it's going to be a lot easier for them.
Abby, I'm so glad you brought that up because I do think that that is such a hard thing to think. We can be happy for someone else and it means nothing about us. It doesn't make us less important. And I love that you brought that up because I do think that's a really good practice skill of saying, okay, this person did really great and I want to compliment them. And it doesn't take away from any part of my value, my worth, or anything else I'm doing. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Okay, those are our 6 ways to be more likable. Think about them as a parent. Think about how you can teach them to your teens. If you haven't read that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, highly recommend it. It would be a great one to even read as a family. Okay, catch us next time on episode 60. How do I know if my teen is really a nice kid at school?
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens with Cheree Murdock and Abbi Winslow. If you are looking for more tips to help your teenager, here's where you can find us. You can find Cheree Murdock on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching or on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find me, Abbi, on Instagram as Abbi Winslow or on my website, AbbiWinslow.com. Please rate and review our podcast and share with a fellow parent. Thanks for listening.